wait for that to go red because I don't trust it. Cool. Okay. Thank you for coming, everyone, to another weekly training session, again, on the subject of Canvas. Today, normal sort of housekeeping stuff. Sessions are being recorded. Use the chat if you don't want to comment out loud. Otherwise, remain on mute. I have muted all, so if you weren't expecting to be on mute, you are now. If you do have a question, just unmute and pipe up. A little bit behind. I need to update this one. So we've done the insight session. Today, we're looking at CanvassLaunch processes. So those are the 4 steps involved with actually launching the canvas itself. So the 4 steps that you have to work through, one of which is optional. So we'll go through those together. We'll look at what the impacts of those are in terms of the database. And we'll look at extracts and register securely as well. So quite a lot to cram into today's session. Next week, we'll be looking at Canvas staffing. You have to have your wits about you next week because that's entirely new stuff. So completely unrecognizable. Nobody has an advantage there. You're all on a level playing field. So Canvas staffing is completely different next week compared to what it was last time. So just a consideration there in terms of who you send along to that one. On the 30th, it'll be the normal processing Canvas responses, which again is a different set of people, maybe. So the people that will actually be actioning the responses back in. So just to be aware of those coming sessions. I've just discovered there's a laser pointer feature on here, which is what that little red line is. I can't turn it off. So today, Canvas launch processes, register securely, performing extracts. In terms of any other business, I'll stay on the call if anyone who's in the middle of doing their first steps now on the Canvas launch, if they want some assistance or if they're stuck on something. The client satisfaction survey is live. We normally present the results during the user group. So for those of you that haven't completed the survey yet, it would be fantastic if you could find some time to do that. Hopefully before it's Friday, we normally do the results, but if we can have them as soon as possible, just so we can put together responses to those. I'll share the link to that in the chat now. So if you've lost that link, that's the link to the survey. So if you've not done the client satisfaction survey yet, please go ahead and do so now. If you're not sure if you've done it or not, just message me and I can check for you, because I always forget after I've done things like that. Also to think about what topics can we cover in this event in the future. Obviously, when we get to the end of the Canvas stuff, normally I have a bit stuck for sort of inspiration as to what we can go over during those sessions. So if there's anything in particular you wanted to go over, my plan was just kind of loop through the normal sort of new starter training that I do when we have a new team member join our staff at Democracy Counts. So just to go through things in more detail, sort of, working through the registration cycle and things like that. So that's my plan at the moment. Unless anyone has a really good idea, then that's what we'll be doing. Okay, so I'll stop presenting on there. And I will start presenting on my other screen. Hopefully everyone can see that now. I'm just in lecture. I'm sure someone will pipe up if they can. Let me just make it so I can definitely see the chat. Okay, yes, so the Canvas launch processes, that's where we're at the moment. So this is the process of performing the national data match, of bringing in the local data that you've already imported into Insight, and for allocating properties to the 3 different Canvas routes. So by being at this stage in the process, we're kind of assuming that you've done most of your sort of property level preparation. You've sorted out the properties that do not Canvas. You've sorted out the Route 3 properties, and that you've at least, maybe started on the Insight stuff. You don't actually have to have done any work in Insight until pretty close to the end of this process. So if you're not planning on sending data to printers for quite some time, so I know quite a few people have built in loads of time this time to do national data, to do local data matching, then you've still got plenty of time to do that, even if your national data matching was, done already. So I'm going to go into... Can
I just ask a question about your campaign groups? So we're using the same campaign groups this year as we did last year, and obviously they're still kind of in use, if you know what I mean. Do I need to take all of my properties out of those campaign groups before I start doing this?
No, so everything will get reset. So both of the sort of, it's kind of bookended, actually. I think it actually happens twice. So the processes involved when you actually launch the canvas and then commit the results at the end will reset everything back to the starting position on the workflow.
Okay.
It's best to double check that, so we'll go over that in a minute. But yeah, it should reset it automatically. But just in case, I always check just to be on the safe side.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, cool. So I'm going into annual canvas and then annual canvas preparation. It will default to your annual canvas year 2020. It will just default to whichever canvas is kind of most recently active. So just make sure before you go any further that you change that to 2021, because that's the year we're in. I mean, it's not a disaster if you do anything to the 2021 now. So I'm coming into the 2021 canvas. We can see I've got some statistics along the top in terms of my total number of properties and electors. The do not canvas properties are shown in here. If I press manage, that will open them up so that I can have a look at those in more detail. The total properties are shown in here as well. Total number of empties, total number of voids are shown on there. It's just some basic top level statistics, nothing sort of earth-shattering really, and you can see all of these in the next screen anyway, so there's no particular reason to linger on here. All of the things that do not canvas you can change later as well, so you're not locking anything in with this. All this step is doing is creating a snapshot. So any changes made past this point would kind of potentially reflect on the statistics, but not in a significant way. So unless you're doing thousands of properties, moving them between into being SRO ones, you should be fine. So you're about to create a Canvas snapshot. To generate the statistics that we'll be using for the end of this project, we will require 3 different snapshots, minimum of 3. The first snapshot is taken now. The second snapshot is taken at the end of the national and local data matching phases. So after we've performed both those processes and committed our route allocations. And the final snapshot will be taken at the very end of the canvas when we sort of close everything off. So using those 3 snapshots, we're able to generate statistics that will tell us how successful local data matching was, how many route changes were made as a result of that, and all sorts of interesting things. So we're going to say yes to that question. We do have to wait for it to generate a snapshot through. There was an issue I think it was I only heard one report of this last time, of the snapshot not getting generated. So I will show you in a second where to go to double check that snapshot has definitely been added in. Okay, so just to sort of confirm that. It was only at one site and it was potentially sort of, we're not sure exactly how that happened. But as a result of that, loads of the stats were off and we had to do loads of sort of manual interventions and it was not pleasant. So I'll go over that in a second. So again, same statistics that's the hardest word for me to say. Same statistics that we saw in the previous screen are shown in here. And we can see the 4 steps that we need. Well, 5 steps really. There's the last one at the bottom as well. So the 5 steps that we need to run through in order to launch the canvas. In terms of the order that you approach these in, they are numbered, but you can do them in a different order if you wanted to. So you can do the local data matching. You can add those in before you've done the national data match. It'll still work exactly the same way. The local data matching will only ever improve things. So if something's a match from the national data match, even if they're not in local data matching, they're still a match. So it basically is a series of upgrades that you're making to them through here. So the first one is the upload of the national data for the national data matching. When you first come in, you should be seeing zeros across the board because nothing has been uploaded, nothing has been received, nothing has been matched. We go into upload to DWP. And we've got 3 options in there. The first option is to send everything at once in one fell swoop. The second option is to select a set number of them and send those up. So maybe as a control group, you would do those. And the final one is to select individual records. Of course, you will have to wait for the designated time slot to upload the data. I'm sure you all know that already, but I thought I'd mention it just in case. Up here, we've got all 72,000. If I was to go with that one, that would upload them all at once. If I do the first 1,000, then you would expect to see 1,000 total sorry, beg your pardon, let me read that again. I think it's elector base. Yeah, so we'd expect to see 1,000 electors appear in this total electors uploaded. Obviously not 1,000 properties because some of those people will live in the same house. There's a question in the chat. Can you please remind me of your definition of void? Void is... it says it on the previous screen. It's uninhabitable and empty, I think, is the definition of void in this case for this particular instance. There is another appearance of the word void on another one of the screens, but this one is, if I hover over, there we are, uninhabitable and empty. Yeah, so the property status is uninhabitable and there's nobody there. So there we are. First option doesn't work. Had to send in groups of 50k. It's a non-issue apparently. Yep, Alison, it is. It's a non-issue on the. I don't know if the release has gone out yet. It's been resolved in 14.2. So for any of you that haven't sent the data yet, if you upgrade to 14.2, you can select the all option. If you're not going to upgrade to 14.2 before doing the national data match, you will have to upload them in chunks. So basically, the issue is if you select all, the next button does not appear in the current release version of Electorate. And if you do a very large volume, sometimes it falls down. So what we've been doing is selecting just the first and then putting 50,000 in there. So it will take a bit longer because you have to go back in and out of the screen a few times. For some of you, not all of you. But if you do it in version 14.2, that issue has been resolved, so you won't need to do that. So I can't upload to the DWP because I'm not a real authority. I'm simulating mine. So I'm just going to run a very quick piece of SQL off to one side that is going to simulate the national data match upload and download. If I go back in now, it should have brought those stats in. In terms of the download, which you can see there, in terms of the download, you will receive a notification from the Cabinet Office to inform you that the data is due to be downloaded again. The download process is handled by an Electorate server function. It's not something that you can do manually. You can't just manually retrieve them. So the download is handled by the Electorate server. If I go to System and then Electorate server, mine's a complete mess. Don't worry about that. I'm doing some testing at the moment. If I scroll down, we should have one for national data matching results download. That process there is what downloads the results from the national data matching. So that one would need to be set to enabled in order to retrieve that. It's probably enabled already because I didn't tell everyone to disable it at the end of the last canvas. But just in case, when you get the message from the Cabinet Office that your results are ready, just make sure that that process, national data matching results download, is set to enabled. So that's under System and then Electorate server to do that. So that's my national data uploaded and downloaded. Obviously much quicker for me because I'm just pretending to do it. But you can see that I've got some information there. We can see the total number of electors that were uploaded and downloaded. You would expect those to match. So sent to DWP and results received, I would expect to match. And you will also see the number of them matched. So that would give you an idea of kind of what your preliminary match rate was looking like. As soon as you've done that, you should see that Electorate has started to make some provisional allocations based on the national data matching alone. So in step 4, we can see that Electorate has started to allocate properties to those routes. And then as we're going through, we might see those shift and move around, but that's the initial allocation. There is an instance that would cause you to have some properties showing in route 1 even before you've done your national data match. And that's a result of this option here, which we'll talk about in more detail in a minute. So if you've got a handful of records that are already in route 1, it's because they're being excluded from data matching based on this checkbox here, which we'll talk about in more detail when we get to that bit. So step 2 would be your optional local data matching. So this is where you bring in the data matching information that you've already imported in through Insight. So this is the place where Electorate connects to Insight. They are the same database, but this is the first place where it kind of ties the two together. If I press add in here, that will open up a new window. I can select from my list of data sources. This is the list of data sources in Insight. So every data source that you've imported into Insight should be displayed on here. There is a known issue with this. I mean, it's a very minor issue, but even the data channels that you've marked as archived in Insight, so the ones that you said, I don't use these anymore, they do still show up in this list, which is a little bit of a mild inconvenience. So in here, you will select the data you want to bring in, the data source. You will see immediately at the bottom in this data grid the import dates that you've imported data into that channel. So we can see I've selected my council tax data source and I've got 2 imports now showing in that data grid. If you've been importing data for a long time into Insight, so if you've been doing it all year, then you'll have loads and loads of those because it'll record every single import that you've performed. We can also see that even though I've got properties matched 14, electors matched 50, we can see that 0 matched electors and 0 matched properties is showing up at the top. That's because of this date field here. So with this date field, what we're saying is this is the date from which I consider this information to be valuable for this project. So when I set this date backwards to a set date, I'm saying everything that I received into this channel from this date onwards is relevant to this project. Everything I received before that is irrelevant and will not affect any of the match scores that I've got. Okay, so if I was to change this to a date prior to the import date, we'll see that the number of match selectors and match properties will increase because now it's every import received on or after that date. There is a caveat with this. It says on or after. It just means after. It doesn't include on. If you set this to 14, I bet it does it now. Maybe it's only if you do it the same day, which maybe isn't something realistic that most users would do. But if you try to do it on the same day that you've imported the data in, which is coincidentally exactly what I have to do when I'm training, then it won't recognize it and you have to set it a day back. But it seems to be fine. So maybe they fixed it. But if it's not picking up the numbers you expect, try putting it the day prior to what you've put into there. And it'll pick them up. So we can see now we've got 50 match selectors, 50 match properties. If I press save now, that will record that data source into my step 2.
Paul, can I just ask, does that go the same way? I've been looking at Insight today, and I was trying to delete my empties data from last year because obviously the empties will have changed, but it looks like I can't actually delete the data out of Insight because it's matched to master records that I can't access. So does that mean if I put new empties data in for this year's Canvas, do I just go from when I've put this year's in and will it ignore the others?
Yes, yeah, exactly. So you can put it through as the same channel. Alternatively, you could just put it through as a different channel, and then you can sort of more easily differentiate between them. But yeah, if you put them in as the same data channel, as long as you put the first match date in as the date for this year's set of data, then it will just pick up on those ones, ignore the ones received prior.
Okay.
Lisa's pointing out a good thing there that I didn't mention last week because I couldn't remember if it had been fixed or not. With Insight, you still can't delete empty property records that you've imported in. It's not the end of the world for the reason we just mentioned. You can just import it in as a different channel or import it in and then specify a different match date. Obviously, you should be able to delete those. You just can't at the moment. The reason is that they are automatically considered to be master records and therefore can't be deleted, except there isn't a master record that you can delete. So it's you can't delete them. We can get rid of them with SQL. So if it's really bothering you and you want a clean slate, put in a client care ticket and they can dial on and remove them with SQL. We have a script ready to go for that one. So you would continue to do that to add in all of the data channels that you've recorded in here. So you would just keep pressing add, keep specifying the data channel. For an empties one, I don't know if I've got any empties. Oh, here we are, yeah. So an empties one looks like this. So rather than saying match selectors, match properties, it just says 0 matched properties. We would then go back in. I mean, this one's from last year, so I don't know how useful that would be in reality. Obviously, that's pushing it a bit. But if I put that back, then it will only capture those 43 matched properties that were included on that import. So you can repeat that process as many times as is necessary. You'll see the properties match, number of electors match. You might see occasionally small, depends on what numbers you like, but you might see shifts between the numbers down here at the bottom. Remember that it's not going to be an exact same number of shifts because some of those properties will already be considered matched. Some of those properties will still have an outstanding unmatched selector in them. So it's not going to be exactly the same as these numbers, unfortunately. That would be nice if it was, but yeah, so some of them will already be in the appropriate category. I think that's everything about that one. Yeah, so that's the optional local data matching. The third step is the optional, again, removal of no match electors. So these are electors that were given a no match score as a result of the national data match. Only the national data match. It's not, if you've got somebody absent on a Insight file, they would already be marked up and have their own processes for getting removed. This is just for the national data match. So anyone who was a no match according to the national data match, you've got the option to add removal evidence to them in here. It will only pop up if you've got people that are a no match that don't have removal evidence against them already of this type, which is why I'm not getting any, because I forgot to remove the removal evidence for my electors last year. So if you already have electors from last year that were no matches that have got the removal evidence against them, they won't show up anymore because they've already got it against them, and they can only have each source of removal evidence once. So I can't do that, but normally if you press that, it would just pop up with a normal sort of removal elector dialog to add that in as removal evidence. I'm curious as to if anyone used that last year. I don't know if anyone's got any anecdotes for their experiences with using that, whether they found it to be effective, whether it came in handy later on down the line. Because I'm of two minds about it. I don't really know if it's something that I would consider doing, but yeah, essentially it adds a single piece of removal evidence to all of those electors that were a no match. Didn't work for you, Mandy, as in it didn't work functionally, or it didn't work because of some other reason?
It just didn't work. Functionally it didn't work.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay.
Well, we were going to have a look at them. We weren't going to particularly use it, but we would have looked at the data. But anyway, no, it didn't. I think there was a problem with it actually. So I don't know if anyone else used it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's because it's an interesting question, because you could add in that removal evidence now, and if they get a second source through being absent from the Canvas response, that would be the two pieces that would remove them. But yeah, if it wasn't working, then it wasn't working. Joan Cox, your hands up.
Yeah, we went through the same scenario as Mandy last year. It didn't work for us. So this year, when we got our matches back, we've got 9,654 that are no match electors, and I didn't want to go into that without looking at some of them first. And Rob's just told me where you can go. You can go to planning and reporting and category search, and then there's no match results from DWP, so you can look at the database first before you make that decision.
Yeah, excellent point. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any because mine aren't real. And the SQL does something a little bit different to what the real process does. But yeah, so excellent point. Thank you for that, John. So if you go to planning and reporting, category search, there is a category search for those with no match results that don't already have the evidence on them. So that will show you who the electors that are going to be affected by there. Yeah, I seem to remember there was an issue. I think it's something to do with this no match, because I think originally the plan was that the status would come back as the word like no match, but then it ended up coming back with no underscore match or something like that. It was to do with a rogue underscore, I think. But yeah, so this will show you all of those affected electors. It's a shame you can't sort of manually mark them in here. That maybe would have been nice, a nice thing to have, to sort of right click in there. But you can at least view them and then make a decision as to what you want to do with them. Okie doke. So after reviewing those three steps, we'll come on to step 4, which is the assignment of campaign groups. There are two optional features you can do up at the top here, 2 checkboxes. The first one is whether or not you want to exclude electors from data matching and force them to be a match if they've been published onto the register within the last 90 days. So that's anyone that you've published onto the register within X number of days, however many days you put in here. The results of their matching exercises from the national data match will be ignored and they will be set as matched. So that can come in handy. It's really a gauge of, do you consider your own kind of exercises that you do locally to verify the identity of electors to be more accurate than the DWP matching process? But you can see it probably won't make a difference to mine because I've not published this register before. But yeah, it's worth just, you can toggle it on and off. It doesn't do anything, doesn't save anything permanently. So just have a look and see what difference it makes. I think it makes a tiny difference on mine. The second one is to include 14 and 15-year-olds in the local data matching and property level aggregation. This is only for, I would think that's only Welsh and Scottish clients that have their 16-year-olds and therefore the 14 and 15-year-olds on there. Again, just try it, see what impact it makes on the kind of scores and see if it's something that you want to pursue. Having never been a Scottish or Welsh electoral administrator, I don't know whether or not that's something I would consider. To me, it sounds like it would lower my number of Route 1s and therefore not something I would consider.
It does, Paul. It makes it worse.
Yeah, yeah. So, bit of a not really a useful feature I would consider doing, but there we are. It's part of the regulations, so what can we do? Yeah, so experiment with those two options, but after that you would go into assign campaign groups, which is where we will assign properties to campaign groups. So I've got 30,425 unassigned properties in here, 10,000 in my route 2, 2 in my route 3, waiting to be assigned. I do have some campaign groups already recorded in there. It should have retained your campaign groups from the last time. They should still be displayed in there. If not, it's super easy to add one back in. You just press add, add new when this window pops in. And then in here, you would record the name that you want to give to that particular campaign group, and crucially, the workflow that you want to assign to that campaign group. So you'd select from the drop down the workflow that you want to choose. But again, I think it should remember them. It remembered mine. I don't know if I've done something differently, but it's still got mine in there. If I press this tick box here, it will display all the properties for me so that I can start making some decisions. The ultimate goal really is that we don't want any more properties in unassigned. Before we can sort of consider this process concluded, I need to see show 0 unassigned, show 0 unassigned, show 0 unassigned across all of the tabs. Electorate won't allow you to start the canvas properly until you've done that. There are some right-click options in here which are a little bit, dubious. They were added as specific requests from the Cabinet Office in terms of the legislation. So these were specific requests that were made of us to add these facilities into here. So the ability to filter properties by recent changes. So these little filter buttons will allow you to, isolate all the properties with a recently added elector in them, for example. On the kind of understanding that you might take the decision to grab all those properties and override the property to a no match. Again, it's only ever going to make the canvas more kind of expensive in that you're creating more route 2 properties, but it's entirely up to you. So if you think, in terms of register accuracy, that's something you want to pursue, then you would just isolate the properties you're looking for, then grab them all, right click and override selected property match result to no match. You'll notice there isn't a way to do things the other way around. We tried to put one in, but we were told we couldn't do that. There isn't a right click option that just says override selected property match result to match. That's because it's actually because all properties are a kind of no match by default. And if every elector in the property is a match, then it's considered route 1. So if we look at this one, which is, you've got Lynn, Raphael, and Randy. Randy's the only one who's the no match. He's letting the side down. So if I right click on Randy and override selected elector match result to match, that will shift the entire property across into route 1. Whereas you can't do that on sort of a property level. Whereas if it was moving from 1 to 2, you can do whatever you like. You can just easily override the entire property to a no match. So opening the little plus will display all of the electors within the property. I don't know how if it's worth kind of pursuing that. I don't know if it ends up being sort of worthwhile to sort of look at them. What I think would maybe be a nice feature, and it didn't really occur to me last year to sort of log this as anything, but I would quite like to see properties where there's just one person that's a no match. So if I could isolate easily the properties where it's one person that's no match, because then I can just get rid of that person, or I can do some local data matching, because those are the quick wins. So that's a good example. I could just do some data matching on Dominique, or get rid of them completely if it's a duplicate of the one below. So yeah, I'll log it, but I can't currently work out an easy way of doing that. Anyway, so once you are happy with the properties that you've got waiting in these kind of bins, if you grab everything with Control and A on your keyboard, so I just select one of them and Control A, right click, assign selected properties to the campaign group, and then route 1 in this case, which will move all of them into this campaign group here. This is a thing it will sometimes do. Can you see how I selected all, but it's only done some of them, and there's some still left in here? Let me try that again. Didn't quite display the number I was expecting. Oh, 600 doesn't feel right. Let me leave that and go back in. It might be because I've been sort of stopping and starting my canvas. No, they're all still there. Okay, let's try again. Assign selected ones, route 1, yes. There we are, that's what I'm expecting to see. So I want to see show 0 unassigned properties in there. You can't actually start your canvas until you've got 0 in there. So if you do see that issue where you assign them all and they don't all go in, just leave and go back in and try again and it should catch them all. I'm not sure why it left them there. Same again with route 2. So again, grab them all, right click, assign to campaign group, route 2. There is the option in there. I don't think anyone's doing that this year, but there is the option in there of randomly assigning them if you were to do some kind of pilot. I know that Luton in particular are planning on having 2 different campaign groups with 2 different workflows for their canvas. In which case you would have the 2 different campaign groups here at the top. I mean, you've probably already done this. And then you can filter on PD code or on Ward or however you want to filter it, and then do them in chunks to assign them to the 2 different campaign groups that you would have. Under route 3, same again. So just grab all your properties, right click, assign to campaign group, route 3. So to consider this process done, you want to see show 0 unassigned properties, show 0 unassigned properties, show 0 unassigned properties across the board. Does anyone have any questions with that? Joan, your hand's up. I don't know if it's up from before. I don't know how the hand system works. I'm never a delegate.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot to take it off.
That's all right. I don't know how it works. I've never used it before. Cool. Okay. So once I'm happy with those, if I close this down, and then we come to our final step, which isn't really a step, but it's step 5, complete the data matching stage. So you can see there's a bit of text there that explains what's going to happen. It's going to create a snapshot. It's going to roll things back through the workflow. It's going to do all sorts of things. So I'm going to click on data matching complete. I'm getting this message because I don't have any DWP upload and transfer history. You shouldn't see this one. You will get this one. It's typical fashion. It's just really trying to warn you about things. So this will send everything back to the beginning and launch those workflows, and it will create that second snapshot that we're going to need to deliver the stats at the end of the project. Do just have to wait for this to go through. And then it will show you some summary level data about the various different data points that were requested of us. You can break that down by lots of different things. So it defaults to local authority, which for most of you just be 1. I'm in a bit of my data is a bit strange, so it's got unusual combinations of things in there. But you can also break it down by polling district, by ward, to see the different sort of statistics in there, if necessary. So I mean, I don't have much of a head for numbers, but there we are. That's the statistic breakdown. So that's my Canvas kind of officially launched. If I go into annual Canvas and then snapshots, we should see 2 snapshot records in there. So before you go any further with the process, come into annual Canvas snapshots and just verify that both of those snapshots are in there. They'll probably have similar numbers on them, but you're looking for 2 different snapshots, one for start of Canvas, which is the very first one you create, and one for data matching complete, which is the one that gets created. The one that gets created after you've done the allocation of the routes. So once you've got those 2 in, you're confident and you can start there. Another thing I like to do when I'm doing this for a client is I like to go into planning and reporting and then workflow progress, and then just have a quick check over the Canvas workflow that you selected and just make sure everything is wound back to this starting position on the workflow. It should be, because that's what the process is designed to do, but just double check for your own sort of self-assurance that everything is wound back to that starting sort of commencement node. So what we would normally do next is our extracts. There's a few considerations for what we would do with those extracts before uploading the data. The thing I always struggle with, and this happens to me every time I'm doing this session for the first time that year, I always forget to do this first. If I go into System, Regional Settings, Canvas Extract Data, the facility to delete previous year's data is still in here and is still required. So if you have not done this last year, or even if you're not sure, if you come into here, I'm not going to do it now, tick that box and press clear. That will wipe down the service of anything that's currently uploaded to Register Securely. Obviously, don't do that when you're starting using the platform. So that's System, Regional Settings, Canvas Extract Data, tick at the bottom, press clear. That will wipe everything that's currently hosted on Register Securely. I think I maybe do it at the close of Canvas session as well, so you might not even have anything on there, but just do it just in case, because otherwise you get halfway through the Canvas Extract wizard and then it stops you and it's really annoying. Other things to consider as well, if you go to System Settings and then Services down in the bottom left corner, I think I talked about this during the very first session, but just right click in there, and if you select the Manage Your Register Securely encryption keys in here, you can do this after, but best to get it done first. And make sure you've got a key in here that's issued, that's currently set to active. I can't activate mine at the moment, but you should have a key in here with a date issued that's set to active. If you don't, if you right click, you can generate a new key pairing. The key is only used for one specific thing, which is the transmission of national insurance number and dates of birth between Register Securely and your own server. If you don't have an active key, then those fields will not be visible to your electors to type in. So you need to have a key in there if you're going to be collecting that sensitive data. Everything else is also encrypted as well, but that's a special key just for those, just because they're super, super sensitive. So just to repeat that, I've gone into System. I've made an incredibly loud noise. I've gone into System, then Regional Settings. In the bottom left corner, I've selected Services. I've right-clicked in the Service panel, and I've selected Manage Your Register Securely encryption keys. In here, I need to see a key pairing that is currently set to active, set to true in the active column. If not, I need to right-click and select to generate a new key pairing. If you did Canvas with us last year, it should still be in there. If you didn't, then you won't have one, so you'll definitely need to do that. Okay, also before I upload any data, I always go into Register Securely and make sure I'm happy with the settings on there. This is the, just if you go to registersecurely.com, you'll see things like this in there. So those are the names of the councils that our client care team use, except for Rob, who's just got his as Rob McGee. I'm going to go to registersecurely.com/portal though, because that's what I need. I don't need the main website. I need the special portal login. I'm going to select my administrator account. If you can't remember your administrator account, just drop a line into client care and they'll reset that for you. So before you upload any data, just go through this and make sure you're happy with the settings that you've got in here, especially if you're doing e-coms, because the e-coms will just fire off immediately. So you need to make sure that you're happy that how the platform's going to look before anyone goes onto it, because there's always going to be people that are super keen or go straight on. We'll look at these tabs in a future session, because that's only relevant when you start getting responses in. But just under, I'm sure I talked about this a few weeks ago, but we'll do it again anyway. Under settings, you'll have the start and stop time you can set in here. You can choose whether or not you want to make the date of birth and national insurance number optional fields. If you leave them unticked, those will be mandatory to record a new resident. For those of you in Scotland, you'll need to choose how people under the age of 16 will appear, and Wales, beg your pardon, will appear on the platform as well. So you'll need to choose whether or not you want them to be visible in terms of their date of birth, or flagged under a special section of the property, or completely invisible. So it's whichever your preference is in there. Under languages, we only currently support English and Welsh. Active languages are the ones that are accessible now. Available languages are the ones that are on the platform. Welsh language always appears above English language, as you would expect with the language regulations. Under content, you can select either English or Welsh. I'm going to go with English because I do not speak Welsh. And we can see in there the various labels that appear throughout the platform. So it's just a case of reviewing those, making sure you're happy with them. I definitely did mention this. I think Siobhan last time from Wakefield mentioned that she'd lost some information from here. I don't know if she's on the call now, but yeah, so just review those settings, make sure you're happy with them before you send anyone off to join that platform. So I'm going to go into Wizards and I'm going to go to Canvas Extract Wizard. There's 3 options in here. Producing the Canvas data during the annual Canvas, any other period, which would be H&Ls, or view previously generated extracts. I'm going to go with the top option and let that evaluate my workflows. So what that's doing is just looking at all of the active Canvas workflows that I have on the system and identifying any forms that are due to be sent out. We can see that if you were doing e-coms and things like that, you would see those all on the top. Functionally, it's exactly the same with e-coms. It's just the emails just kind of fire off in the background. You don't really see them happening. You would just need to remember to tick the email box in addition to the letter box. So I'm selecting letter. You can see that it is mixing them up. So you can see there's a root 2s and root 1s mixed between there. There's a question there. Hi, Paul. How do I clear down last year's address clarification messages, please? Good question. When you go into system regional settings, I shouldn't have done that, and delete your previous year's register securely data, I would hope and expect that to clear down those as well. If it doesn't, I'd probably consider that to be a bug, Janine. So once you've done that, I'd expect them to go away. If they're still there, please log that as a bug, because that is the action that should get rid of them. So if we go back into Canvas Extract Wizard, and we'll do my letters here and press next. So it's just popping up there that it's going to produce an extract for those properties. I'm currently set up as a VJB, so clients in valuation joint boards will see this as well. So it's again just the normal dialogue that you've probably seen about 800 million times now, just asking you to pick an authority. I'm just going to press this for now. 2 options, either to create an extract for the printers or to create one for analysis only. So the extract for printers is the live one. The extract for analysis only is not live and therefore will not be recorded to history and will not advance any properties through the workflow by sending it. The name of the extract is just defaulted in there. You can change it if you want to, no massive benefit in doing so. Areas to include in the extract defaults to all polling district. You can choose to separate them off. So if you need to do a separate extract for your root 1s and your root 2s, then you can go into campaign groups and select the campaign. I mean, I've got loads of them, you won't have this many. You can select the campaign group that you'll be using to extract that data. So if you're just doing Canvas forms, then you would select the one that the Canvas form was attached to. I'm leaving mine set to all polling districts just because it's a bit faster. You can choose to save each area separately. So in this case, it would be each file, each polling district would be a separate file. I don't know anyone who uses that one, but maybe you do. If you're printing the forms in-house, I don't think anyone does this with Canvas forms. Basically, all that does is it converts any true or false fields. So for example, opt out is a true or false field. They either are opted out or they aren't. And it converts those true or false fields into different characters, a P, a capital P, and a space. The reason it does that is that when you are mail merging yourself in Microsoft Word, you can set up the Wingdings font to convert that into a tick and a cross. So that's what that button is for. So if you are producing them in-house and you need to convert all of the true and false fields into a P and a space for the purpose of using Wingdings, then that's the option for you. It's maybe a bit niche. Include headers and extract, exactly that, as the CSV is going to include headers. And then there's the optional inclusion of non-eligible citizens, which are people who don't meet the nationality requirements for registering in England, and not as many of them in... So England and Wales still have them, but Scotland, I can't remember. I can never keep track of these things. Scotland, I know, don't have as many of those non-eligible citizens anymore. Include unverified drafts are anyone who is not registered yet, so it's anyone who's in the kind of registration cycles. If you are including those, you can choose to give a different indicator to describe that. So a different word will be printed onto the form to indicate that somebody's not registered. It does default to unverified. So if you want a different phrase, then you would put, not registered or something like that in there. Personally, I never did either of them, but my scenario was a bit niche. Siobhan, you're having issues with lag and not seeing what you're describing on your screen. So I'm going to bow out and watch the video when it's online. Is anyone else having issues with lag? Or is it maybe just one user?
No, I can't see anything that you've just gone through. It's just showing me the letters page, but not showing you all the right clip options and things.
Oh, okay. That's weird. All right, let me cancel my. Oh yeah, a few people. Let me cancel my screen share and launch it again. Yeah, we do have the recording, so if not, you might sort of follow along with that. Okay, should be screen sharing again now. Okay, so once you're happy with those configuration options, press next. That will open up a new bar. Yep, so that will start extracting the canvas data. When it's done a bit of the puzzle, it will pop up with a Windows File Explorer, which has happened on my other screen. Oh, there he is. So that will show you your extract file and a PDF explaining the columns within said extract file. Don't touch either of those until you see the progress bar finish. So this, let me drag it across, this progress bar, until that's finished, don't go anywhere near them just because it's still actually writing to that. So you get a little message that pops up at the end. I'm going to ignore that. So yeah,
double check that Canvas extract file's definitely the same format as it was in last year. There's been no changes to it.
I'm not aware of any changes, but I'll double check. Yeah.
Okay.
So no changes to Canvas extract file. I'm not personally aware of any, but I don't have one from last year, so I can't compare. No changes to Canvas extract file. I don't see what we need to add, but I'll check.
Thanks.
Hopefully someone's got an archive one. If you've got an old one from last year, Lisa, that'd be really helpful.
Yeah, I can send you an old one on. It's just because we've got to do test data, and support came back telling me that I was to just jiggle about my last year's Canvas flows and then run it again. So
if you want, I can send you this.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
They're not real. Oh, yeah, I won't save it. Don't worry. I've learned my lesson with CSV. It's just nonsense data. It's just random garbage. I'll put that up on the help site, and then everyone can do it, can't they?
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll put it on the same page that I put the links for the videos on.
If you could put the Canvas extract layout document on as well.
Yep, we'll do. Yeah, both. No problem. I'll do that for you. Okay, so now we come to upload our data to Register Securely itself. You do need a logo, which I didn't think about downloading an image of some kind. Let me take this off screen just in case anything is. What should we pick? It's got to have some kind of image file on my computer. I've only just got this machine, but I don't have any images. Oh man, really? Electra logo. I'll use a party logo. I'm not expressing any political affiliation. I don't even have my party logos downloaded. Oh no, I do. Okay, I'm not expressing any political affiliation with this. I'm just going to pick one at random that looks inoffensive. Okay, oh, this is a good one. Okay, it's a picture of a unicorn. I don't know anything about this party. They might be horrible. We'll go with this image of a unicorn. So your council logo should be pre-selected for you automatically, as it is in most cases. So it's stored in your system settings what your logo is. If it's changed, then you can change it here, but also you should really be changing it in your system settings. Otherwise, you'll just find yourself doing that all the time, changing logos everywhere. Start and end dates for the service. So that's when the service will become accessible to electors. That's when it will become inaccessible to electors. People tend to leave a little bit of a buffer at the back end to sort of close off the service and give time to sort of input those. You can change the opening and closing times afterwards. If you log on to the portal, the Register Securely portal, then you can change the opening and closing times. The feedback question you can pop into here. So this is the question that pops up at the very end of the elector's response journey. It just shows up to ask them a simple question. They do get a chance to type something in if they want to. Basically with this, the point of this feedback question is to temper kind of responses to get a better idea of how useful the service actually is. otherwise you tend to only hear from your detractors. So, electors love to phone up and complain about things being difficult to use. They're not going to do that and just say, oh, that was completely acceptable. That was the neutral experience I wanted to have as an elector. So in here, I'm just going to put, did you find this service easy to use? It's a classic one for that. It does ask them a yes or no question at the end of this. To accompany this feedback question, this has to be a yes or no answer. So did you find this service easy to use is a yes or no question. How easy did you find this service to use is not a yes or no answer. So once you're happy with that, press upload. That will pop up in a new window. I have, how many do I have? 40,000 or 70,000? Let's see how long that takes to run. Alison says, does it produce one file again instead of separate CCA, CCB? Yes, it does for me because I selected everything. But if you choose to do it by campaign groups instead of doing all polling districts, there is an option where it says all polling districts. You can drop down and select campaign groups instead. Then you can just choose your route 1 or your route 2s.
Yeah, that won't work because we use canvas areas for delivery, so I'll have to do it as all.
Okay. So you deliver the first kind of run of
We deliver the first, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember if canvas area is on there.
Yeah, we do. We do exactly the same.
I can't remember if it was on there last year because we got abandoned at the last stage.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Let's see if I can go back in a minute, and we'll see if there's a canvas option in there. I might not be able to get there because I've already.
I know I requested it last year.
Yeah, there was a fourth option in there, but I can't remember what it was. There was polling districts, campaign groups, something, and something else, but I can't remember what it was. That's not very useful to you, I know. So let me check in a minute. Janine says, does that separate the empties from occupied as well, please? No, I don't think so. I guess, because you have a different template for emptied and occupied properties. I don't think it does. I don't know. Yeah, I remember that because there is a different layout of form, isn't there? Let's have a look. See if it's stacking them at the top. That would be helpful at least, and then we can. No, there's empties scattered throughout. So no, it doesn't do that at the moment, Julian. That is a good point. Don't know if everyone else has that issue as well with empties and others, or if everyone just uses the same template and just doesn't print electors onto it. I don't know. I'm out. It's been a long time since I've produced any canvas forms in the real world. So not that I'm aware of, Janine, but I can log that and we can add that for a future year. But I can't think of a way of doing that at the moment. What you could maybe do, Janine, if you wanted to have it as separate kind of extracts, is it's a little bit fiddly, but you could do it with your workflow. So you could have the workflow branch, and if the property is empty, it goes down one branch and gets a certain template. And if the property is occupied, it goes down another branch and gets a different template. Then at least you could have them in the extract marked as such. Another thing you could consider doing is building a delay between the two. So the first time you run it through, you set the date that you're going to be running off the first form, and you get all your empties out, and then the next day you do the occupied ones or something like that. It's a little bit cumbersome, but it's doable. So if you want to stay behind, I'm happy to discuss that option with you. Yeah, printers found it really difficult last time sorting the different types. Yeah, okay, agreed. It should be an option. Need help with workflows then. Do you need to ask support? For that, Janine, I would go through client care to ask for support with that one, because I think if it was a simple workflow job, I can show you how to do it, but that one's quite a complex one, so I'd probably log that with client care sort of ASAP, really, if that's something you want to pursue.
Paul?
Yeah.
I know we talked about it in the earlier webinars that we've done, and I hadn't spotted it on here while you were going through there. So we still haven't gone for the option of having a previous address so that we can delete them rather than have a build up in duplicates.
Sorry, John, I'm lost there. Sorry, what was that question?
If they put themselves on as a new elector at a new address, and they go through all the things, they put the date of birth, the national insurance number and everything else, the one thing that we don't ask on this response service is their previous address. So the only way you get them is by going into duplicates and finding out that they're at address A or at address B, and then you take them out. Whereas if we could have that in the response, what their previous address was, surely that'd take them out when we go through the process.
I must admit, I've not been through everything on Register Securely yet, because we're due to sort of cover it next week. But I couldn't tell you. I've not looked at it this year. I've not done a response yet as an elector, so I can try and find out in advance. But we'll be covering that next week anyway during the normal kind of session.
Okay.
But yeah, cool. Okay, so that's everything uploaded to Register Securely. That's my extract files out. I don't think I'm going to be able to get back into the Canvas extract wizard now to see if I can separate them by canvas area. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's not going to let me go any further. Yeah, okay, I can't get any further at the moment. I'll reset to my database backup and try again. I'll put a comment under the video as to whether or not that's something you can do. There was definitely a fourth option there that I didn't recognize, so I'll find out, Alice, and I'll come back to you. Okie doke. That's everything that we're going to cover off today. Next week we are doing actually, beg your pardon, we're doing Canvas staffing next week. I'm doing staffing a bit earlier than responses just because there's quite a lot of pre-preparation work that you're going to have to do for staffing this year. So we'll do staffing first. So that's the agenda for next week. Does anyone have any other questions at this stage? In the chat, Sam says, I'm sure that these improvements were raised in Project Refine. Yeah, rings a bell. I don't think we did Project Refine on Canvas stuff, but I seem to remember it did come up. Yeah, agreed. I mean, there's loads of stuff. I mean, there's 200 issues raised during Project Refine, so that's for the incoming product owner to decide where those go. So if you come into user group, there'll be an update on that on Thursday. Paul, the step-by-step on Zendesk says it was last updated 10 months ago. Is this the guidance to use, or are we awaiting a new manual? The manual is currently up to date, except for the staff stuff, which I'll be doing, I don't know, a weekend or evening soon. So that should be fine for the step-by-step for most of it. Just when you get to the staffing of the actual canvases themselves, that bit isn't out up to date yet, but the rest of it should be fine. Cool. Okay. Thank you very much for coming, everyone. I'll speak to you all next week. If anyone has a question about their specific Canvas configuration, feel free to stay on the call and we can discuss that.